Welcome to The Source, a podcast from the Doctoral College at Montfort University in Leicester in the United Kingdom, reaching deep into the minds of researchers who are making meaningful change. I'm Ajay Chhabra, your host, a PhD candidate, and each episode explores the incredible people behind the research, what drives their passion, and the difference they want to make in the world. Join us as we celebrate our ideas, ambitions, and impact straight from the source. I'd like to welcome you, Stephen, to The Source, the third of our podcasts of this first series. You're an experienced coaching psychologist, a higher education manager, a doctoral researcher, and accredited executive coach here at Montfort University's Faculty of Business and Law. You received your BSc in psychology and MSc in forensic psychology from the University of Leicester between 1997 and 2002. And you've practiced as an applied psychologist for over 20 years. What we're interested here at the Doctoral College is to talk a little bit about your part-time PhD studies and yourself as a lecturer here at De Montfort. Here at The Source, we're really interested in origin stories. What was those kind of early stages of interest in this area of research that you inhabit?
Thanks very much for having me. It feels a bit like being on This Is Your Life when you read out the biography. My background to starting a PhD at De Montfort is that I have practiced mindfulness since about 2018, having done a training program called Mindfulness-Based Cognitive Therapy, or MBCT. And it's something that's been of interest to me. And once I'd done the training, I realised that I'd been using aspects of mindfulness practice in previous practice that I've had working as a psychologist in different settings. But I hadn't necessarily made the link in terms of a formal practice and how that might be used as a psychologist. So my research idea came about a few years later, and it was whilst I was involved with teaching on one of our postgraduate coaching programs here at De Montfort. And I think the driver for it was to engage more critically with the idea of how mindfulness is used within the workplace, and particularly how it might be used by coaching psychologists and by coaches in terms of their practice. And
tell us a little bit more about your PhD research. What do you have a working title?
The working title is an exploration of the role of second-generation mindfulness-based interventions for workplace coaching practice. Typical PhD title. It's long-winded.
And that might
lots
evolve.
Of terms in there. It might evolve. It might get shorter. It might get longer. Broadly speaking, what I'm interested in is the intersection between mindfulness as it's practiced within the workplace and in the West, which is broadly defined as secular practice, and mindfulness as it's practiced more traditionally as a part of Buddhist philosophy and Buddhist practices as well.
And how far down the line are you? What sort of?
Quite a long way. So I started in 2019. Part-time PhDs typically are 6 years. I had a reset on my registration date due to challenges with supervisors leaving, which I'm quite happy to be open about. It's a challenge that you have as a PhD student. Happy to talk more about that.
And this series of podcasts, Stephen, is also about kind of encouraging a new generation of PhD potentials. Might be sort of on the edge of thinking about it. So any top tips or moments of navigation are always very helpful.
Sure, yeah. So I started in 2019, had a reset, so effectively moved my registration date back a year. I had a year where I interrupted for 12 months because I also have a full-time job here at De Montfort, and part of the challenge of doing a part-time PhD is fitting it in around a full-time role. Again, something I'm quite happy to talk about if that's of interest. So at the moment, I'm looking at March 2027 as the date. So I'm getting towards the thick end of things now.
Yeah, well, that's just over a year away.
It is, yeah. And the route that I've chosen
So
to
I didn't
do...
want to kind of...
No, that's fine. I'm very aware of that. Thank you. So the route that I've chosen to do is what's known as PhD by concurrent publication. And part of the kind of requirements of that route is that you have a minimum number of papers that are produced to a standard where they're publishable. They don't have to have been published, but they have to have been produced to that, publishable standard. So you have a publication strategy, and that's something that I'm very much engaged with at the moment. So
really interesting. I mean, and the route that you've taken, you have a very successful career.
It's kind of you to say that.
Sure. I mean, I'm just
reading my bio,
reading your bio, and thinking that's a lot of stuff, and that takes time, to really invest in. You invest in yourself, and you invest in your relationships, and then to kind of build a PhD into that. Why? I guess is the question. Why PhD, and why now?
Wow. Why PhD is because I work as I forget what the term for this is, but somebody that spans both professional services and academic roles. And increasingly, the direction of travel for my career is towards an academic role. So having a PhD is a really, really important part of developing as an early career researcher and as an academic. It's also something that's really important to me in terms of my role as a coaching psychologist. So I'm in the process of getting chartered with the British Psychological Society. And as part of that process, you have to demonstrate that you have a body of evidence around research that contributes to the practice and development of the profession. So it kind of ticks those boxes. But I think most importantly, it's something that I've always wanted to do. It's a way of challenging yourself. It's a way of making a contribution to the profession that's applied and meaningful and has impact. And it's something that my research is what's known as autoethnographic research. So I practice as a psychologist, I practice mindfulness, I work in higher education, and my research is around the practice of mindfulness as a coach working in HE. So I'm a part of the sort of area of research that I'm interested in as well.
When you talk about mindfulness in the university, what does that mean? What does that look like to somebody who might not be familiar with the terminology?
So I think from the perspective of, if I was to answer that question as a researcher, critically, then what I see in the workplace isn't necessarily what I would consider to be best practice, which is part of what stimulated my interest in researching in this area. So as an academic, as a part-time lecturer, one of the things that I'm really keen on students being able to do is to critically engage with their areas of interest. And as coaches or as people working in coaching or within wellbeing in the workplace, that involves asking questions about existing practices and asking questions about whose interests are best served by such practices.
In your life that perhaps drew you towards this area of research that you now inhabit?
Yeah, I would say it was what I mentioned before, which was completing a 8-week mindfulness program back in 2018. It was something I paid for myself, so I did it as an interest outside of work, and I guess that was that interest was stimulated by the fact that I've worked I've worked in fields that include mental health in the past, and I've read quite a bit about the benefits of mindfulness practice for mental health. That's where it comes from in the West. Originally, it's developed from clinical applications like mindfulness-based stress reduction, which were interventions for people with clinical levels of need around anxiety and depression and those kind of issues. So, yeah, I think that's probably where my initial interest came from.
Stephen, just give us a little description, explanation of how your research merges into your practice.
Yeah. So the approach that the reason I chose the PhD by concurrent publication is to produce work as I'm going through my doctorate, which is publishable, but also because I work as a scientist practitioner, and the relevance of that is that my practice is informed by research, and also that my practice as a psychologist. So it's something that supports engagement with industry, engagement with the profession, and it has a very applied focus. So it's not a purely academic pursuit for me. It's actually doing research, doctoral research, as a means to develop my profession moving forward as well.
And that's something that's highly encouraged here at DMU.
I think that's something that's becoming more valued at DMU. I think it's something that reflects a pivot in the university towards valuing engagement with industry and professions, and the importance of research in informing the growth and development of professional practice.
I suppose the question that our listeners are interested in is what difference are you looking to make, and where is that research heading?
It's a good question, and I think it's one that you're asked to consider right from the start of your PhD journey. It's something that I guess differentiates between master's research and doctoral research. So I think for me, the difference is around coaching practice and practicing as a coaching psychologist. And it's around how we quizzically engage with mindfulness as an intervention, as a profession, and also how it's used and potentially misused within the workplace. In my case, my research is specifically around higher education and workplace wellbeing programs.
It's about the misuse. What does that
mean? So it's around, I don't want to get too technical now.
Sure. Yeah. No, please share as much as
sure,
as
okay.
you feel comfortable.
So I suppose the position that I'm taking in terms of my research is that wellbeing programs within institutions, including higher education institutions, are susceptible to misuse by organisations.
To be just a tick box exercise.
Yeah, so there could be something that's arguably provided to demonstrate engagement with staff wellbeing. Yeah. In the case of mindfulness programs, the concern is that because of the way that they're delivered, they're effectively denaturing and removing all of the kind of aspects of the program that are concerned with ethical practice and behaviour that's about reducing harm to others. And so they're open to being manipulated in ways which might not be in the best interest of those people that are using them. Yeah, I can give you an example of that if you like.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
very interesting.
So I guess from a neoliberal perspective, the challenge is that mindfulness programs, as they're used in the workplace, could be accused of individualizing structural issues within organizations. And what I mean by that is that they're locating the focus and the responsibility for coping with these problems with the individual, as opposed to the organization necessarily looking at why people are struggling in the first place. And so by structural issues, it could be to do with workload pressures, it could be to do with toxic workplace practices, it could be to do with the dynamics of the sector that people are working within. But the focus of the intervention is very much on the individual, and the individual becoming more mindful, more resilient, a better time, having better time management skills, etc., etc. And that happens in the absence of any wider conversation about the systemic drivers of stress, poor mental health, whatever it might be, within that setting.
So what you're seeing is that the individual might be seeing a way through. But that doesn't necessarily result in the organisation that they're taking adequate measures.
Well, I think if you look at the evidence for staff wellbeing in the higher education sector, levels have been going up exponentially, and as have engagement with staff wellbeing programs, which suggests to me that perhaps something isn't working. Yeah. So there's higher...
And you're seeing this sort of shift and change. You're analysing this. You're looking
at it. So what I'm seeing is that delivery of workplace wellbeing programs typically focuses on individuals. It's an individualised process, and that doesn't appear to be reducing people's experience of stress and having well-being issues within the workplace, which suggests that perhaps there are other drivers that aren't being addressed through current well-being interventions.
Stephen, part of this podcast series is about encouraging a new generation of PhD student. What would from your own experience, there are so many various ways of looking at it, but what would your suggestion be, particularly in the areas of things like time management, the technical process of applying, which sits alongside being passionate about the subject? Because there's the functional stuff, I guess, and then there's the more emotive, passion.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think if you want to do a PhD, and there are caveats to this, but if you want to do a PhD and you have a research area in mind, you have to be passionate about it, because you're going to be spending a lot of time over the next 3 to 6, 7 years developing your research around it. And there'll be times when you're asking yourself the question, why on earth am I doing this? So, yeah, absolutely. I think that's the kind of core part of it. I believe it's a question that you'll get asked at various points through your research process, and certainly your Viva. Why did you decide to do a PhD? So I think you have to be able to answer that question yourself in order to sort of get the most out of it, really, and as a way of coping and managing and maintaining motivation as you're going through the process. Yeah.
And as a psychologist and as a coach, and in and amongst your other broader specialisms, there is a clear growing concern for students with particularly neurodiverse students. Where does the work that you do live within that, and what trends are you seeing or coming across?
I wouldn't. I'm trying to think how to phrase
diplomatic,
this.
Or are you
Yeah, I'm just trying to think how to phrase this. So it's not an area that I am specifically concerned with. I think in terms of working with students more generally as an academic, there is one of the many roles I have is that I was an equality prompt reviewer for new programs, which meant that we had to go through and assess their compliance with equality, diversity and inclusivity practices. So I think De Montfort's very good as a university at recognising EDI and the needs to make reasonable adjustments for students in relation to that. So as to the wider kind of challenge of neurodiversity and HE, it's not an area that I can really offer an opinion on that's particularly informed.
No, but that's really helpful. I mean, that's specifically looking at De Montfort and our university,
yeah.
and what you've said is really encouraging. There are steps and measures and processes in place to encourage and support. I guess the question is that encouragement and support there?
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, okay. So if I were a prospective student looking to study here, I think one of our absolute strengths is how much we embrace diversity as an institution. And I think that's something that we are very good at doing. It's something that I think we market very well. I think we have a lot of support across various parts of the university for staff and students around valuing diversity and neurodiversity and diversity across all different sorts of shapes and forms. So I think if that's something that you're thinking about from the point of view of where to study, De Montfort is a fabulous place for that. We have incredibly diverse group of staff, a highly diverse student body, both home and overseas. We regularly appear in the sort of Stonewall top 10 of organisations. We have a race equality charter mark, silver charter mark. We have a variety of initiatives that are run across the campus to support students and staff. So yeah, I think it's a fabulous place for that. So I think in terms of advice that I would offer to students that are interested in coming to De Montfort to study at doctoral level, it's really important that you have a good idea in your head of what you want your research to be about, and also that you've done your research, so you've looked at what expertise there is within the university, and I would encourage students to maybe contact members of staff. You can find information through research institutes for members of staff, particular research interest for members of staff, and to look at where the expertise lies within different parts of the university, because that support will be absolutely invaluable to you as you're going through your research process.
Thank you so much, Stephen. It's been a real pleasure talking to you. I mean, it's never easy to capture a career and a career of research in 3 words. We'll allow you 5. But if you were to pick 3 words, I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but sometimes the first answers are often the best ones, or the ones that stick. What 3 words would you choose? You can have 5.
The question is 3 words that would
capture
describe
the essence of the research that you do and the interests that you have in this area.
critical, emancipatory. You can use a word that has a hyphen in it, autoethnographic. Or maybe another way of describing that is lived.
A lived experience.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Stephen Baugley, it's been a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to The Source, where we delve deeper into our research community. This podcast was produced by the Doctoral College at De Montfort University. You can learn more about postgraduate life at DMU by visiting dmu.ac.uk/DC. From The Source to you. Until next time.